I want to tell you something that nobody talks about, but that everyone who has ever come close to true wealth has experienced. Right before your breakthrough arrives, right before everything you've been working toward finally clicks into place, something strange happens. Everything starts to fall apart. I mean, completely fall apart. The relationship that seemed stable suddenly erupts into chaos. The job you thought was secure disappears. Your health falters. Your confidence crumbles. The money you were counting on evaporates. People you trusted turn away. And you find yourself standing in the rubble of what feels like your entire life, wondering if you did something terribly wrong, if you're being punished, if maybe you were never meant for abundance at all. Let me tell you right now, with every fiber of my being, you are not being punished. You are being prepared. What you're experiencing isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's actually the clearest sign that you're on exactly the right one. You see, the universe doesn't work the way most people think it does. We've been taught that success is a straight line. You work hard, you stay positive, you follow the rules, and good things happen in a nice, orderly fashion. But that's not how spiritual law operates. That's not how transformation works. And wealth, real wealth, the kind that doesn't just touch your bank account but changes your entire existence, requires transformation. The problem is that transformation is messy. It's uncomfortable. It looks like destruction before it looks like creation. And most people, when they hit this phase, when everything starts crumbling, they think they've failed. They think the universe is telling them no. So they turn back. They retreat to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is limitation, struggle, and quiet desperation. They never realize they were 3 feet from gold, as they say. They never realized that the falling apart wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of their breakthrough. I've watched this pattern repeat itself over and over and over again, in my own life and in the lives of countless people I've worked with. And I need you to understand what's really happening here. Because if you're in that place right now, if things are falling apart around you, you need to know you're not crazy, you're not cursed, and you're not alone. You're in the refining fire, and what comes out on the other side will barely resemble who you were when you went in. The universe doesn't send you into the fire because it hates you. It sends you there because mediocrity was killing you slowly, and love doesn't let someone it cares about die that way. Think about it. Before everything fell apart, were you truly happy, or were you comfortable? And I need you to be honest here, because there's a massive difference. Comfortable means you stopped questioning. Comfortable means you stopped growing. Comfortable means you were living on autopilot, going through motions that looked like a life but felt increasingly hollow when you were alone at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was really all there is. The breaking isn't punishment, it's intervention. I've watched this pattern unfold hundreds of times. Someone comes to me, devastated because their seemingly perfect life just imploded. The marriage everyone envied? Over. The career they climbed for 10 years? Gone. The identity they built their entire existence around? Shattered like cheap glass. And they ask me, why? Why me? What did I do wrong? Here's what I tell them. You didn't do anything wrong. You outgrew a version of yourself, and the universe knew it before you did. You were never meant to stay in that relationship where you had to shrink yourself to fit. You were never meant to stay in that job that paid your bills but starved your soul. You were never meant to keep wearing that mask you put on every morning, the one that made everyone else comfortable while you suffocated underneath it. The old life had to go because you have an assignment waiting for you, and you can't carry it out with your hands full of things that no longer serve you. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're holding onto a rope, and that rope represents everything familiar. Your routine, your relationships, your ideas about who you are and what you deserve. You're gripping it so tight your knuckles are white, because letting go means falling into the unknown, and that terrifies you more than staying miserable. But here's what you can't see while you're clinging to that rope. There's solid ground 3 feet below you. There's a whole new landscape waiting. Gardens you haven't walked through, doors you haven't opened, versions of yourself you haven't met yet. The breaking forces you to let go. And yes, there's that moment of free fall. That's where you are right now, if you're in the middle of it. That suspended moment where everything you knew is gone, and nothing new has appeared yet. That's the void. That's the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. Most people panic in the void. They scramble for the nearest distraction, the quickest fix, anything to fill that terrifying emptiness. They call old lovers. They book trips they can't afford. They throw themselves into work until they're numb. But here's what I learned. The void isn't your enemy. The void is the sacred pause before your breakthrough. Think of it like this. Before a seed becomes a plant, it has to break apart in the darkness of soil. It doesn't look like growth. It looks like death. The shell cracks. Everything the seed was comfortable being dissolves. And for a while, there's nothing but darkness and decomposition. But that's precisely when the transformation happens. That's when the new life begins to form. The void works the same way in your spiritual journey. When everything falls apart, when you feel like you're floating in darkness with nothing to hold on to, you're not lost. You're being remade. The old patterns are dissolving so something truer can emerge. I remember standing in my apartment after my daughter left for college. Suddenly, the identity I'd wrapped myself in for 18 years, mother, caretaker, the one who had all the answers, it just evaporated. The silence was deafening. I'd wake up with no one to cook for, no schedule to maintain, no role to perform, just me and this vast, echoing emptiness. Every instinct screamed at me to fill it. Sign up for classes, volunteer everywhere, date frantically, anything but sit with that void. But something deeper whispered, wait, be still. Let this emptiness teach you something. So I did something radical. I let myself be no one for a while. I stopped trying to become the next version of myself and just existed in the gap. I sat with the discomfort. I listened to the silence instead of drowning it out. And you know what happened? In that stillness, I started hearing a voice I'd been ignoring for decades. My own voice. Not the one that echoed my mother's expectations or society's shoulds. My actual voice. The one that knew what I truly wanted, what I'd been too afraid to admit. The void isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's where God clears the canvas so you can paint something new. You see, most people panic in the void. They think something's gone wrong. They scramble to fill it with noise, with distractions, with desperate actions that only delay what's trying to emerge. But I've learned that the void is sacred ground. Think of it like this. A farmer doesn't plant new seeds in soil that's already choked with old roots and weeds. First, he clears the field. He turns the earth. He lets it rest. That fallow period looks like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, the soil is being enriched, restored, prepared for the abundance that's coming. Your void is that fallow field. I once knew a woman, let's call her Margaret, who lost her job, her relationship, and her apartment all within 3 months. She came to me in tears, convinced that God had abandoned her. Everything is falling apart, she said. I have nothing left. I looked at her and said, no, my dear, everything is falling times away, asterisk. There's a difference. She didn't understand at first. How could she? When you're in the void, all you can see is what's missing. But I had her do something radical. I told her to stop fighting it. Stop trying to force a new job, a new relationship, a new anything. Instead, I had her spend 30 days in what I call watchful waiting. Every morning, she would affirm, Infinite Spirit, you are clearing the way for my highest good. I trust the process. And then she would go about her day, but with a new awareness, watching for signs, staying open to guidance, releasing the need to control the outcome. Do you know what happened? Within those 30 days, an old acquaintance reached out about a business opportunity Margaret had never even considered. It paid twice what her old job had. Within 6 months, she met a man who became her husband. And the apartment she'd lost? It turned out to have foundation problems that would have cost thousands to repair. She didn't lose everything. She was being times redirected, asterisk. That's what the void does. It redirects you when you're heading towards something that isn't aligned with your highest good. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it requires faith. But discomfort is not the same as destruction. The void asks you one essential question. Can you trust what you cannot yet see? Most people can't. They need proof before they believe. But that's backward. Faith comes times first, asterisk. The demonstration follows. You're waiting to times see times the money before you feel abundant. You're waiting to times meet times the person before you feel loved. You're waiting to times lose times the weight before you feel beautiful. And I'm telling you that order keeps you stuck forever. Because the universe doesn't respond to your words. It doesn't respond to your wishes or your pleading or your desperate affirmations recited through gritted teeth. It responds to your times state of being asterisk. It responds to what you are times emanating asterisk. And if you're emanating lack, if you're vibrating at the frequency of I don't have it yet, then guess what the universe is going to keep reflecting back to you? More lack. More not yet. More waiting. This is why people affirm and affirm and affirm and nothing changes. They're saying the words, but underneath, there's still times, feeling times the absence. They're still identified with the problem. I once worked with a woman who wanted to manifest a business partner. She did everything right on paper. She wrote the affirmations. She visualized. She even made a vision board. But every time we spoke, she would say, I just can't do this alone anymore. I'm so tired of struggling by myself. Do you see what she was doing? She was times claiming times, the very thing she said she didn't want. Every time she said, I'm alone, she was recreating aloneness. Every time she said, I'm struggling, she was commanding more struggle into her experience. I finally said to her, stop telling me what you don't have. Stop rehearsing the problem. Start times living as if times your partner is already on the way. She looked at me like I was asking her to lie to herself. But that's not what faith is. Faith isn't pretending. Faith is times knowing asterisk. It's a deep inner certitude that what you've asked for is already done in the invisible, and now it's just making its way into form. So she started changing her language. Instead of I'm alone, she began to say, I'm preparing space for my perfect partner. Instead of I'm struggling, she said, I'm so grateful for the support that's coming. And within 6 weeks' times, she met a woman at a networking event who became not only her business partner, but one of her closest friends. That's not coincidence. That's law. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you times are asterisk. And the moment you begin to times be times the person who already has it, the universe has no choice but to deliver it. Because here's what most people don't understand about manifesting. It's not about times getting asterisk. It's about times becoming asterisk. Let me show you what I mean. When I first started teaching these principles, a woman came to me desperate for money. She had bills piling up, creditors calling, and she was suffocating under the weight of lack. And every single day, she would affirm, I want money. I need money. Money is coming to me. But nothing changed. Why? Because her entire being was vibrating at the frequency of times need asterisk. She was identifying as someone who times lacked times money, and the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, kept showing her more lack. So I told her something that shocked her. I said, stop asking for money. Instead, start times being times, someone who has plenty. But I don't have plenty, she protested. That's precisely the problem. I said, you're waiting for the money to arrive before you allow yourself to feel abundant. But it works the other way around. You must feel abundant times first asterisk, and then the money comes. I had her do something radical. I told her to go through her day as if she already had wealth. Not to spend recklessly, but to walk differently. To speak differently. To make decisions from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. When someone offered her a discount, instead of jumping at it desperately, she graciously accepted it as something that naturally flows to her. When she paid her bills, instead of resenting the money leaving, she blessed it and thanked it for circulating through her life. Within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew. The exact amount she needed. Coincidence? No. Consciousness. She had stopped times, chasing times abundance, and started times embodying times it. And the moment she became it internally, the external world rearranged itself to match. This is the secret that eludes most people. They're waiting for permission from their circumstances to feel the way they want to feel. But you must give yourself that permission, times now, asterisk. You must dare to feel wealthy before the bank account reflects it. You must dare to feel loved before the relationship appears. You must dare to feel successful before the world applauds you. Because feelings are the language of manifestation. Most people are walking around emotionally bankrupt. They're waiting for proof before they'll allow themselves to feel anything good. Show me the money, then I'll feel abundant. Give me the relationship, then I'll feel loved. Hand me the contract, then I'll feel worthy. But that's the beggar's mentality. That's the consciousness of lack dressed up in practicality. I once worked with a woman who was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She had ideas that could change her entire industry. But every time an opportunity came near, she would shrink. She would literally make herself small. And when I asked her why, she said, "I don't want to be disappointed again." Do you see what she was doing? She was choosing fear over faith. She was protecting herself from disappointment by guaranteeing failure. I told her what I'm telling you now. You cannot protect yourself into prosperity. You cannot guard yourself into greatness. The very act of protecting yourself from feeling good until something happens ensures that nothing will happen. Because universal law doesn't respond to your words. It doesn't respond to your wishes. It doesn't even respond to your desperate prayers at 3 a.m. when you're scared and alone. It responds to your dominant feeling state. It responds to the emotional frequency you're broadcasting every single moment of every single day. You are a living magnet, not sometimes. Not when you remember to be. Not when you're feeling spiritual or doing your affirmations. Always. You are always magnetizing circumstances that match your inner climate. So when you hold yourself in emotional poverty, waiting for external wealth to give you permission to feel abundant, you're literally repelling the very thing you're claiming you want. The universe doesn't see your vision board. It doesn't read your journal. It doesn't hear your affirmations unless those affirmations are charged with genuine feeling. What it responds to is this: the way you feel when nobody's watching, the inner conversation you have with yourself in the shower, the subtle sense of worthiness or unworthiness that hums beneath everything you do. This is why feelings are the secret. This is why embodiment is everything. You must become so committed to feeling the way you want to feel that you refuse to let circumstances bully you out of it. You must guard your inner climate the way a gardener guards her most precious seeds. Because here's what most people don't understand. Your feelings are not passive responses to life. They are active creative forces. When you feel abundant, you set into motion a chain of thoughts, decisions, and actions that align with abundance. When you feel loved, you radiate a frequency that draws love toward you. When you feel worthy, you stop accepting scraps and start claiming what is truly yours. This is not fantasy. This is metaphysical law. Think about the last time you woke up, feeling genuinely joyful for no external reason. Maybe you had a beautiful dream, or the morning light hit your room just right, or you simply rested well. What happened that day? I'm willing to bet opportunities seemed to appear. People were kinder. Solutions came easier. That's because you weren't dragging the weight of doubt and fear through your day. You were light, and life responded to that lightness. Now think about a day when you woke up anxious, already rehearsing problems before your feet touched the floor. How did that day unfold? Chances are, it confirmed every fear you brought with you into it. Not because the universe was punishing you, but because you were looking through the lens of anxiety, and so anxiety is what you found. Your inner state is the filter through which you experience everything. Change the filter, change the world. But I want to be clear about something, because this is where people trip themselves up. Cultivating a high-feeling state does not mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. It does not mean spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. It means you stop giving your power away to every passing circumstance. It means you anchor yourself in something deeper than the surface chaos. When I say, feel abundant now, I'm not asking you to ignore your bills or lie to yourself. I'm asking you to remember that abundance is not defined solely by your bank account. Abundance is the air you breathe, the creativity in your mind, the friendships you cherish, the ability to start again. When you attune to abundance in any form, you open the door for it to expand in all forms. This is a practice. Daily, moment by moment, you will forget. You will slip back into old patterns, and that's okay. The work is in the returning the conscious choice to redirect your attention, to shift your inner weather, to refuse the hypnosis of fear. I want you to understand something profound. This is not self-deception. You are not ignoring reality, you are choosing which reality to invest in. And the reality you invest in becomes the reality you inhabit. When you train yourself to see the finished thing, you are not lying to yourself about present circumstances. You are recognizing a deeper truth, that consciousness precedes form, that the invisible always precedes the visible, that the idea of the tree exists before the seed breaks ground. Look around you right now. Everything you see, every chair, every wall, every device in your hand was once invisible. It existed first as thought, as imagination, as vision. Someone saw it before it was, and their sustained vision brought it into form. This is not magic. This is law, and you are using this law whether you know it or not. The question is not whether you are creating with your vision. You are always. The question is what you are creating. Are you creating from fear or from faith? From doubt or from knowing? From the evidence of what is or from the vision of what is already done? Now, here is where most people stumble. They begin this work with enthusiasm. They affirm, they visualize, they speak their word. And for a few days, maybe even weeks, they feel the shift. They feel hopeful. They feel aligned. And then life happens. An unexpected bill arrives. A relationship conflict emerges. The job offer falls through. And immediately, all that beautiful inner work collapses like a house of cards. They say, "See, I knew it wouldn't work. I knew I was fooling myself." But here's what they don't understand. This is the test. This is where the work becomes real. This is where you prove to yourself and to the universe that your faith is stronger than your circumstances. This is not the moment to give up. This is the moment to double down. Because here's what I've learned. The universe doesn't reward those who quit when things get hard. It rewards those who hold steady when everything is screaming at them to let go. Think of it like planting a garden. You don't dig up your seeds every day to check if they're growing. You water them, you protect them, you trust the process. And most importantly, you don't abandon the garden just because you can't see the flowers yet. Your manifestation works the same way. Just because you can't see the evidence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Beneath the surface, in the invisible realm of spirit, everything is already in motion. The wheels are turning, the connections are being made, the doors are being prepared to open. But if you give up now, if you let doubt convince you it's not working, you're pulling up those seeds before they have a chance to break through the soil. I want you to understand something profound. Your word has power. When you declared your desire, when you claimed it as yours, when you spoke it into existence, that was not a casual moment. That was a creative act. You set forces into motion that are far more powerful than your doubts. The universe heard you, Spirit responded. And now, the only thing standing between you and your manifestation is your willingness to hold the vision steady. This is where faith becomes practical. This is where belief becomes a discipline. You don't just feel it when it's convenient, you practice it when it's difficult. Every morning, you wake up and remind yourself, it is done. Every night, you go to sleep knowing, it is already mine. Every moment of doubt, you replace with a statement of truth. I trust the process completely. This isn't denial. This isn't pretending. This is choosing to align with the truth of the spiritual realm rather than the appearance of the physical realm. Because remember, what you see around you is yesterday's creation. What you're building now with your faith is tomorrow's reality. And here's the beautiful part. Every single person who has ever manifested something significant has walked this exact path. They've all faced this waiting period. They've all dealt with the doubt. They've all had moments where it seemed like nothing was happening, but they held steady. They kept the faith. They refused to be moved by appearances, and that's exactly what made them successful. You see, my dear friends, there's something I must share with you about the nature of resistance. When you first begin to speak your word with power, when you first start to claim your good, the old conditions don't just vanish overnight. In fact, they often seem to intensify. This is what I call the darkest hour before dawn. It's the moment when your new consciousness is pushing up against the old forms, and those old forms are fighting to maintain their grip on your reality. I've watched people falter at exactly this point. They declare their abundance, they claim their perfect opportunity, and then, for a brief moment, things appear to get worse. Bills pile up, doors seem to close, and they think, well, it didn't work. But oh, how mistaken they are. This is actually the sign that it is working. The old thought forms are dying, and like anything that's dying, they make quite a commotion before they go. Think of it like this. You've planted a seed in your garden. That seed must first break open in the darkness of the soil. It must push through heavy earth to reach the light. To the casual observer above ground, nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, tremendous work is being done. Your word is working beneath the surface of appearances. Your faith is rearranging the very molecules of your experience. But you must not dig up the seed to check on it. You must not water it with tears of doubt and fear. I knew a woman who was facing eviction. She had 30 days to come up with rent money she simply didn't have. Instead of panicking, she took this truth and held it steady in her mind. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways. Every single day for those 30 days, when fear knocked at her door, she answered with this statement. On day 28, when it seemed all was lost, she received word that a relative she barely knew had passed away and left her an inheritance, more than enough to cover her rent and give her a cushion besides. Now, I want to pause here, because I know what some of you might be thinking. You're thinking, but Florence, that sounds like coincidence. That sounds like luck. That relative could have passed away anyway. And to that, I say, there are no coincidences in a universe governed by spiritual law. When you align your consciousness with abundance, you create a magnetic field that draws to you the very channels through which your good must come. That inheritance was always there in the invisible, waiting. Her focused thought and unwavering faith made her a vibrational match for receiving it. This is what I mean by working with the law, not against it. Most people are pushing upstream, fighting against the natural current of supply. They're declaring poverty while hoping for wealth. They're affirming lack while praying for abundance. It cannot work, my dear ones. You cannot plant apple seeds and expect to harvest oranges. The word you speak is the seed you plant in the garden of your life. And the universe, in its perfect wisdom, must bring forth after its kind. Speak of poverty, and poverty you shall reap. Speak of abundance, and watch as doors open that you didn't even know existed. I once knew a woman who was brilliant at her craft, a dressmaker with extraordinary talent, but her business was failing, and she couldn't understand why. She had the skills, she had the experience. What she didn't have was the consciousness of prosperity. Every time someone admired her work, she would say, "Oh, business is terrible. Nobody wants to pay fair prices anymore. I can barely keep the lights on." She was speaking her truth, yes, but it was a truth born of limited perception, and that limited truth was creating more limitation. I said to her, "My dear, you are the prophet of your own life, and right now you are prophesying poverty." I taught her to change her words, even when circumstances screamed otherwise. Instead of complaining about lack of customers, she began to affirm, "My business is divinely guided, and the perfect clients come to me in perfect timing." Within 3 weeks, her shop was filled with new customers. But here's what most people miss. It wasn't magic. It was alignment. When she changed her words, she changed her vibration. When she changed her vibration, she changed what she attracted. The universe always says yes to your dominant conviction. Now, I want to address something that troubles many people. They say, "But Florence, what if I speak these words and nothing happens? What if I affirm abundance and I'm still broke?" And here's what I tell them. You're asking the wrong question. The real question is not, will it work? The real question is, am I working it? You see, affirmation without faith is just noise. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. The word must be backed by absolute conviction, by unshakable faith. When you speak your word, you must know not hope, not wish, but know that it is already done in the invisible realm. Your only job then is to remain steadfast until it manifests in the visible. I once knew a man who wanted to heal his body. He was riddled with illness. Doctors had given up on him. I taught him to declare every morning and evening, "The life of God flows through every cell of my being. I am whole, perfect, and complete." For weeks, nothing seemed to change. His symptoms remained. But he did not waver. He kept speaking his word with conviction. And then one day, suddenly, the tide turned. His symptoms began to disappear. Within months, he was completely healed. The doctors called it a spontaneous remission, but you and I know better. There was nothing spontaneous about it. He had been building his healing in the invisible realm with every word he spoke. And when the time was right, when his consciousness had fully accepted the new reality, it burst forth into manifestation. This is the power you hold. Every word you speak is either building your prison or constructing your palace. There is no neutral ground. You are always creating, always prophesying, always setting forces into motion. The question is, what are you creating? What prophecy are you living into? You see, there was a woman who came to me once, utterly despondent. She had been turned down for a position she desperately wanted, a job that would have changed everything for her. She sat before me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I knew I wouldn't get it, I just knew it." And there it was. The very thing she feared, she had called into being. I asked her, "When did you know?" She looked at me, confused. "When did you decide you wouldn't get this position?" She thought for a moment, then admitted, "From the moment I applied. I kept thinking about all the reasons they wouldn't choose me. I rehearsed the rejection in my mind 100 times before it ever happened." You see what she had done? She had lived the rejection before it occurred. She had dressed rehearsal after dress rehearsal in the theater of her mind, perfecting her role as the one who fails. And the universe, that magnificent stage manager, simply gave her the part she had been practicing. This is what we do. So often, without realizing it, we think we are being realistic. We think we are protecting ourselves from disappointment. But what we are actually doing is writing the script for our own defeat. Your word is your wand. Every thought is a spell. Every belief is a prophecy seeking to fulfill itself. Now, you might say, "But I can't just pretend everything is wonderful when it's not. I can't ignore reality." And you're right, I'm not asking you to deny what is. I'm asking you to stop empowering it. I'm asking you to stop giving it your allegiance. There is a vast difference between acknowledging a condition and declaring it permanent. When you say, "I am broke," you are not stating a temporary fact, you are declaring an identity. You are putting on the costume of poverty and walking about as though it fits you perfectly. But when you say, "There is currently a lack of money in my experience, but abundance is my divine birthright, and I now claim it," you have acknowledged the condition without bowing to it. You have seen it without surrendering to it. This distinction matters tremendously. When someone comes to you and says, "How are things?" and you reply, "Oh, terrible. I'm broke. I'm struggling. Nothing ever works out for me," you have just signed a contract with lack. You have declared yourself a citizen of the kingdom of poverty. Your words have become the architect of your tomorrow. But when you say with calm authority, "I am in the process of demonstrating my supply," or "Every need is being met as I speak," you have refused to give the condition power over your identity. You have acknowledged where you stand without making it who you are. I have watched people transform their entire financial reality by this simple shift in language. A woman once told me she was drowning in debt. I asked her to stop using that phrase immediately. "You are not drowning," I said. "You are walking through a temporary experience of debt, and you are walking toward freedom." Within months, unexpected channels opened. Money came from directions she had not even thought to look. Your word is your wand. Every time you speak, you are casting a spell, either for good or for limitation. Most people wander through life muttering incantations of failure and wondering why their fairy godmother never arrives. They do not realize they have been the witch in their own story all along, cursing themselves with every complaint. Now, let us address another powerful principle, the law of non-resistance. This teaching mystifies many people because it seems, on the surface, to contradict everything we have been told about effort and struggle. We have been trained to believe that we must fight for what we want, battle against opposition, resist evil, combat our enemies. But infinite intelligence operates on an entirely different plane. Resistance is the very thing that keeps your good from you. When you resist a situation, you give it power. You feed it with your attention, your emotion, your energy. What you resist persists, growing stronger in direct proportion to the force you bring against it. Think of a person swimming in water. If they fight the current, panic, thrash about, they exhaust themselves and may drown. But if they relax, if they trust, if they work with the water rather than against it, they float. They conserve their energy and move strategically. This does not mean you become passive or defeated. It means you stop meeting force with force. You stop trying to change things through sheer willpower or anxiety. You stop attempting to control every outcome through mental strain. You begin to understand that your role is to align, not to battle ***. Your role is to become conscious of what you're vibrating, what you're believing, what you're declaring, and then to intentionally choose something higher. Let me give you a very practical example. Let's say you're dealing with a difficult person, a boss, a family member, a neighbor, someone who criticizes you, undermines you, or simply refuses to cooperate. The old way would be to resist them, to rehearse conversations in your mind, to defend yourself mentally before they even speak, to build walls of resentment and irritation. But resistance only keeps that person locked in your experience. ***. What you resist, you empower. ***. When you resist someone, you're giving them your attention, your energy, your creative power. You're saying, in effect, you have the power to disturb my peace. And the law, being impersonal, says, so be it. And so they continue to show up, again and again, pressing the same buttons. Non-resistance doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you allow people to mistreat you. It means you stop giving them your inner kingdom. You withdraw your emotional investment in their behavior. You bless them silently and release them. You say inwardly, I see the Christ in you, even if you don't see it in yourself. You affirm, there is no power in this person to disturb the calm peace of my soul. And something shifts. Sometimes the person changes. Sometimes they simply leave your experience. Sometimes you're guided to a new job, a new living situation, a new boundary that protects your peace without warfare. But the shift always begins within you. ***. Non-resistance is not passivity. It is supreme spiritual authority. ***. It is knowing that nothing, no person, no circumstance, no condition has power over you unless you give it that power through your reaction. When you understand this, truly understand it, you become unshakable. You stop being a puppet to circumstances. You stop letting your mood be determined by someone else's email, someone else's tone of voice, someone else's lateness or carelessness. You realize that ***, you are not obligated to absorb the chaos around you. ***. I once knew a woman who worked in an office where her supervisor was perpetually critical. Nothing was ever good enough. Every piece of work was met with complaint, with nitpicking, with thinly veiled hostility. For years, she went home exhausted. She felt beaten down. She began to believe she was incompetent. Then one day, she remembered this truth. ***, what someone says about you is not who you are. ***. She stopped resisting the criticism. She stopped fighting it internally. She stopped replaying the conversations in her mind, constructing defenses, imagining confrontations. Instead, she simply observed. She did her work with integrity. She released the need for this person's approval. And something miraculous happened. The supervisor's words lost their sting. They became like wind passing through an open window, present, but not destructive. Within months, the supervisor's behavior changed. The criticism softened, the tone shifted. The woman had changed the vibration between them by refusing to meet hostility with inner resistance. ***. You see, when you stop resisting, you stop feeding the very thing you don't want. ***. Resistance is energy. It is fuel. When you resist a person's negativity, you are actually locking yourself into energetic combat with them. You are saying, you are powerful enough to disturb me. And the universe, always obedient, says, so be it. But when you release resistance, you withdraw your energy from the battlefield. You stop playing the game. And without an opponent, the game dissolves. This is how you reclaim your power. ***. Not by fighting harder, but by surrendering the fight entirely. ***. Now, I must clarify, this does not mean you become a doormat. It does not mean you tolerate abuse or allow yourself to be mistreated. Non-resistance is not weakness. It is discernment. You can remove yourself from toxic situations with calm authority. You can set boundaries without anger. You can say no without guilt. ***. The difference is in your inner state. ***. Asterisk. Are you reacting from fear or responding from peace? Are you fueled by defensiveness or guided by wisdom? Because that inner state determines everything that follows. I've seen people set boundaries from a place of anger and watch relationships crumble. I've seen others set the exact same boundary from a place of calm, clarity, and watch relationships deepen. The boundary was identical. The energy behind it was not. When you operate from peace, people feel it. They may not like your boundary. They may push back. But somewhere deep down, they sense your groundedness. They recognize you're not attacking them, you're honoring yourself. And that energy, that vibration of self-respect without aggression, often disarms defensiveness in others. Asterisk, asterisk. This is where the spiritual work becomes practical. Asterisk, asterisk. You can't fake inner peace. You can't pretend your way into wisdom. The universe reads your frequency, not your words. So when you're about to set a boundary, pause. Feel into your body. Notice what's happening in your chest, your jaw, your stomach. Are you tight, braced for battle? Then wait. Not forever, but long enough to breathe, to center, to reconnect with your truth. Because a boundary set from contraction often creates more problems than it solves. But a boundary set from expansion, from that place where you know your worth so deeply that you don't need to defend it, that boundary becomes a gift. To yourself, yes, but also to the other person. Because you're showing them what healthy relationship looks like. You're teaching them, through your example, that love doesn't require self-abandonment. Asterisk, asterisk. And here's what nobody tells you about this process. Asterisk, asterisk. At first, it feels mechanical, clunky. You stumble over your words. You second-guess yourself mid-sentence. You worry you're being too harsh or too soft or too something. This is normal. You're learning a new language, the language of self-honoring, and all new languages feel awkward at first. But you keep practicing. You keep noticing your patterns. You keep asking yourself, am I reacting or responding? Am I defending or declaring? Am I collapsing or standing firm? And slowly, something shifts. The boundaries that once felt like war become conversations. The words that once caught in your throat flow naturally. You discover you can be both kind and clear, both loving and boundaried, both open-hearted and self-protective. Asterisk, asterisk. You realize these aren't opposites, they're partners. Asterisk, asterisk. You've been taught that if you love someone, you should accept everything they do. That if you protect yourself, you're being cold or unloving. But that's the lie that keeps you trapped. Real love doesn't mean erasure of self. It means bringing your whole self to the table, including your limits, your needs, your truth. When you set a boundary, you're not building a wall. You're drawing a line that says, this is where I end, and you begin. This is what I can hold, and this is what I cannot. And that clarity is the most loving thing you can offer, because it's honest. Think of a boundary like a fence around a garden. The fence doesn't reject the world. It protects what's growing inside, so it can thrive. Without it, everything gets trampled. With it, life flourishes. You've tried the other way, haven't you? You've said yes when you meant no. You've stayed silent when something hurt. You've twisted yourself into shapes you didn't recognize, all to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to be seen as good. And what happened? You didn't feel more connected. You felt more alone. Because they weren't loving the real you, they were loving the version you performed. Here's what I want you to understand. Asterisk, asterisk. When you abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you teach them that your needs don't matter. Asterisk, asterisk. And over time, they believe it. Not because they're cruel, but because you've trained them to expect your disappearance. So let's rewrite that script. Start small. The next time someone asks something of you that feels off, don't rush to yes. Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Or am I just afraid of what will happen if I say no? If the answer is fear, that's your sign. That's where your work is. You don't have to be harsh. You don't have to explain yourself into exhaustion. A simple, that doesn't work for me, is complete. It's a full sentence. You're not on trial. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on why you're honoring yourself. And yes, some people will push back. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. They'll try to guilt you back into the old pattern. And here's what I want you to understand. Their resistance is not about you. It's about them. When you change, you hold up a mirror to everyone around you. You show them what's possible. You show them that the cage door was never locked. And that terrifies people who have chosen to stay small. Because if you can break free, then they have no more excuses for staying trapped. So they'll try to pull you back. Not out of love, out of fear. Fear that your liberation exposes their own self-imposed limitations. Fear that your boundary setting reveals how they've been giving themselves away for free. Fear that your joy highlights the joylessness they've been tolerating. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them squirm. Let them question. That's their work to do, not yours. You are not responsible for making other people comfortable with your growth. Read that again. Tattoo it on your soul if you need to. Your job is not to shrink so others can feel adequate. Your job is not to dim your light so others aren't blinded. Your job is not to play small so others don't have to face their own bigness. Your job is to become who you were always meant to be and let the chips fall where they may. Now, I know this sounds harsh. I know it sounds like I'm telling you to abandon everyone and become some selfish monster. But that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is this: real love, true love, authentic connection. It doesn't require you to sacrifice yourself. It doesn't demand you betray your own soul. It doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Real love celebrates your boundaries. Real love honors your truth. Real love says, I see you growing, and I'm cheering you on, not, how dare you change on me. And the people who truly love you, they'll adjust. They might be confused at first. They might be surprised. They might even be hurt initially. But if the love is real, they'll come around. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll celebrate your evolution. And the ones who don't? Well, now you have your answer about who they really were all along. Because here's what I've learned about authentic relationships. They're not built on your smallness. They're built on truth. And when you start living in your truth, when you step into the fullness of who you were created to be, you give others permission to do the same. I remember a woman who told me she was terrified to start her business because her family had always been working-class people. She said, Florence, they'll think I'm getting above my station. They'll say I'm acting like I'm better than them. And I asked her, who told you that being your best self was an insult to anyone else? She had no answer. Because that story wasn't even hers. She'd inherited it. She'd been carrying someone else's fear like it was her own destiny. So she started the business anyway. And you know what happened? Her mother cried. Not from disappointment, from pride. Because seeing her daughter break free reminded her mother of dreams she'd buried long ago. Sometimes the people you think will reject you are actually waiting for you to show them what's possible. But let's be honest, not everyone will respond that way. Some people have made their identity out of struggle. They've built their entire sense of self around limitation. And when you transcend that limitation, it threatens the very foundation of how they see the world. They need you to stay stuck because your stuckness validates their own. This is not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for managing other people's insecurities. You are not required to dim your light so that others feel comfortable in their darkness. Your obligation is to your own soul, to the divine spark within you that demands expression. And here's the thing about setting boundaries. It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be a dramatic confrontation. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on why you're choosing differently now. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is simply create space. Distance isn't cruelty. Distance is wisdom. You can love people from afar. You can wish them well without inviting them into your daily life. You can honor what you once shared while acknowledging that you're growing in different directions. Maturity is understanding that not everyone is meant to walk the whole journey with you. And here's something many people miss. Growth doesn't always have to be announced. You don't need to make a public declaration about who you're releasing from your life. There's no need to post about your boundaries or broadcast your emotional evolution. Some of the most powerful transformations happen in complete silence. When you quietly remove yourself from spaces that no longer serve you, when you gently decline invitations that drain rather than fill you, when you simply become unavailable to the chaos you once tolerated, that's when real change takes root. Your growth doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need validation or applause. It simply needs your commitment. I've watched people try to explain their boundaries to those who will never understand them. They exhaust themselves justifying why they need space, why they're choosing differently, why they can't keep showing up the same way. And what happens? The explanation becomes another battleground. The boundary itself gets lost in the negotiation. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and others is to simply step back without fanfare, to let your actions speak, to allow the natural distance to form without forcing a confrontation that serves no one. This isn't about ghosting people or being cruel. It's about recognizing that not every ending requires a dramatic finale. Some relationships simply fade, and that's okay. Some connections naturally dissolve as you grow, and fighting that dissolution only creates unnecessary pain. Think about how nature works. Trees don't announce when they're shedding leaves for the season. They simply let go when the time comes. The leaves don't demand an explanation. There's no conflict, no negotiation. It's just the natural cycle of growth and release. You can approach your own evolution the same way. With grace, with quiet confidence, with the understanding that your peace doesn't need defending, your choices don't need lengthy explanations, and your growth doesn't require anyone else's permission. The people who are meant to understand will understand. Those who aren't ready will project their own fears onto your choices. And that's information, not indictment. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know about whether they belong in your next chapter. Because here's what most people won't tell you. Transition is a trust fall with no catcher. You have to believe the net will appear as you jump. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There will be moments when you're midair, looking down, wondering if you've made the most catastrophic mistake of your life. I remember a woman who left corporate law to open a small bookshop. 6 months in, during a particularly brutal winter when foot traffic disappeared and the bills stacked up, she told me she'd wake at 3 a.m. with her heart pounding, calculating how many weeks she had left before complete financial ruin. Her old colleagues were making partner. Her parents had stopped asking how the store was doing. Every silent moment felt like confirmation that she'd destroyed her life for a fantasy. But she also told me something else. She said that even in those dark hours, even when the fear was so thick she could taste it, there was something underneath it. A quiet knowing. A sense that she was finally aligned with something true. The terror was real, yes, but so was the rightness. This is the paradox nobody prepares you for. You can be absolutely terrified and absolutely certain at the same time. These states aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, they're often companions. The fear doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're awake. It means you've stopped numbing yourself with the familiar. And here's what I need you to understand. You're not looking for a transition without fear. You're looking for a transition where the fear matters less than the call. Where the discomfort of staying has finally exceeded the discomfort of leaving. Because staying has a cost too. We just don't calculate it. We don't tally the slow death of dreams deferred. We don't measure the accumulation of small resentments, the gradual dimming of our own light, the way we start to become strangers to ourselves. Those costs are invisible until suddenly they're not. Until you wake up one day and don't recognize the person in the mirror. I've seen this awakening happen in countless ways. Sometimes it's dramatic, a health crisis, a devastating loss, a moment when the mask simply cracks beyond repair. But more often, it's quiet. It's that morning when you're getting ready for another day of performing, and you catch your reflection and feel absolutely nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just emptiness. And that's when you realize the price of keeping everyone else comfortable has been your own aliveness. Here's what I want you to understand about that moment. It's not a failure. It's not evidence that you've done something wrong. That moment of recognition, that hollow, uncomfortable awareness, is actually grace arriving. It's your authentic self, the part of you that knows your true worth, finally speaking loud enough to be heard over the noise of everyone else's expectations. And yes, what comes next is terrifying, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize how much of yourself you've given away, how much of your life you've spent in service to a peace that was never really peace at all, you're faced with the most difficult choice of your life. Do I keep going, or do I stop? This is where most people get stuck. They see the truth clearly, but the fear of change, the fear of disruption, the fear of disappointing others, it's so powerful that they talk themselves back into the very pattern that's been suffocating them. They say, "It's not that bad. I can manage a little longer. Maybe I'm just being selfish. Maybe I'm overthinking this. But that voice, that small, frightened voice that wants to retreat back into the familiar, isn't wisdom. It's survival instinct. It's the part of you that believes staying small is safer than risking expansion. And I'm here to tell you that instinct is lying. Staying in a pattern that diminishes you isn't safety. It's slow surrender. It's choosing a lifetime of quiet desperation over a season of uncomfortable transformation. The truth is, you cannot keep the peace and keep yourself. Not the kind of peace that requires your silence, your smallness, your constant self-abandonment. That equation has never worked, and it never will. Something has to give, and the question isn't whether you'll choose the question, is what you'll choose and when. So here's what I want you to consider, really consider. You know that thing you've been putting off? That conversation, that decision, that leap? The one where you keep telling yourself, when things calm down, when I have more time, when the conditions are perfect. What if that moment never comes? What if the perfect time is a myth you've been sold to keep you comfortable, compliant, stuck? Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. The conditions will never be perfect. There will always be something else demanding your attention. There will always be another email, another crisis, another person who needs you. The treadmill doesn't stop on its own. You have to be the one to step off. And yes, that's terrifying. I know it is. Because stepping off means facing the fact that maybe you've been running in the wrong direction entirely. It means admitting that the life you've been working so hard to maintain might not be the life you actually want. It means looking at all those sacrifices and asking yourself the one question you've been avoiding. Was it worth it? That's the question that keeps people awake at 3 a.m. That's the one that makes your chest tight when you're sitting in traffic, or standing in the shower, or lying next to someone you've stopped really seeing. Was it worth it? And the scary part, the part that makes you want to turn away and go back to the familiar numbness of busyness, is that sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you realize that you traded something precious for something hollow, that you gave up your dreams for someone else's definition of success, that you spent years building a life that looks impressive from the outside but feels empty from within. But here's what I want you to understand. That realization, as painful as it is not the end. It's actually the beginning. Because you can't change direction until you admit you're going the wrong way. You can't reclaim your life until you acknowledge what you've lost. This isn't about blame or regret. This is about honest reckoning. This is about looking at where you are, how you got here, and whether this is where you want to stay. Because here's what I know after years of watching people navigate this. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are become the cages we live in. You tell yourself you're not good with money, and suddenly every financial decision you make proves it. You tell yourself you're unlucky in love, and you unconsciously sabotage every promising connection. You tell yourself you're too old, too young, too damaged, too inexperienced, and those stories become the bars on your cage. But here's the twist. The cage door was never locked. You've been free to walk out this entire time. The only thing keeping you inside is your commitment to the story. Your insistence that this is just how things are, just who you are, just what life has dealt you. And I get it. There's a strange comfort in those stories. They excuse you from trying. They protect you from the vulnerability of hope. They give you something solid to hold on to when everything else feels uncertain. But they're killing you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, the way a tree dies from the inside out while its bark still looks intact. Every day you spend maintaining these false narratives is a day you're not spending building something real. Every conversation where you rehearse your limitations is energy you could be investing in your expansion. So let me ask you this. What would happen if you just stopped? What if you stopped explaining why you can't? Stopped justifying why you haven't? Stopped defending your current position as if it's your permanent address? What if, just for today, you spoke about yourself the way you would speak about someone you genuinely believed in? Because here's what I've noticed. We extend more grace to strangers than we do to ourselves. You'll believe a complete stranger when they say they're starting a business. You won't question it. You won't ask for their credentials or their track record. You'll say, "That's wonderful, good for you." But when it's you, suddenly you need a dissertation to prove you're worthy of your own belief. That's backwards. If you can believe in someone you don't know, someone whose past you haven't witnessed, someone whose failures you haven't counted, then you can certainly believe in yourself. You know your resilience. You know how many times you've gotten back up. You know the strength it took to survive the things no one applauds you for surviving. So start speaking to yourself with that same generous belief. Not someday. Today. Say it out loud if you have to. In your car, in the shower, wherever you can hear your own voice claiming what's true. I am someone who follows through. I am someone things work out for. I am someone whose life is changing for the better. Does it feel awkward at first? Maybe. So did walking. So did reading. So did every single skill you now take for granted. You weren't born fluent in the language you speak. You learned it by repetition, word by word, sentence by sentence. And that's exactly how you reprogram the story you've been telling about your life. Word by word, thought by thought, until the new narrative becomes more familiar than the old one. I promise you, the moment you stop rehashing what didn't work and start declaring what is working, what will work, what must work, because you're not giving up this time, that's the moment everything starts to shift. Not because you're faking it, because you're finally aligning your words with the truth of who you actually are. Someone capable, someone worthy, someone whose next chapter is not determined by the last one. Your words have that power. The question is, will you use them? Now let's go deeper, because there's another layer to this that most people never address. And it's this. Your subconscious is listening to everything, every single word you say, every thought you think when you think no one's paying attention, every joke you make at your own expense. Your subconscious is listening to all of it, recording it, filing it away. And then here's the part that'll make you sit up straight times, acting on it asterisk. You see, your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't say, oh, she's just joking. It doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't know the difference between what you mean and what you say. It simply accepts everything as an instruction, as a command, as the truth you want to experience. When you say, I always mess everything up, your subconscious doesn't argue. It says, understood, creating more situations where you mess things up. When you say, nothing ever works out for me, your subconscious doesn't question it. It says, message received, blocking opportunities, attracting obstacles. It's like having the most obedient servant in the world, one who follows your every instruction to the letter, even the ones you didn't mean to give. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I can't help it. These thoughts just come. These words just slip out. I'm only human. And yes, you are human. But being human doesn't mean being helpless. It means being powerful beyond measure, with the ability to times choose times your thoughts, to times redirect times your words, to times reprogram times your inner dialogue. This is where the real work begins. This is where you stop being a victim of your own mind and start being the master of it. I want you to catch yourself. For the next week, I want you to become hyper-aware of every disparaging remark you make about yourself. Every time you minimize your worth. Every time you speak lack instead of abundance. And when you catch yourself because you will, I want you to stop mid-sentence if you have to. Stop and rephrase. Say what you times want times, instead of what you fear. Instead of, I can't afford this, say, I'm open to ways this can come to me. Instead of, I'm so stupid, say, I'm learning and growing every day. Instead of, nothing good ever happens to me, say, I'm ready to receive all the good that's coming my way. Does it feel awkward at first? Absolutely. Does it feel like you're lying to yourself? Maybe. But here's the truth. You've been lying to yourself all along with those negative statements. At least now, you're lying in the direction of your dreams. And something fascinating happens when you start speaking this new language of affirmation. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge truth from fiction. It simply accepts the dominant thought pattern you feed it. When you say, I am prosperous, your subconscious begins searching for evidence to support this claim. It's like giving a detective a new case to solve. I've watched this unfold in the most remarkable ways. A woman came to me absolutely convinced she was too old to find love. She was 42 and had been repeating this story for years. I gave her a new script. I am divinely attractive at every age. Love finds me now. She resisted at first, said it felt ridiculous. But I told her, speak it anyway. Speak it until your mouth gets tired. Within 3 months, she met someone. But here's what really changed. It wasn't just that she met someone. Her entire countenance transformed. She started dressing differently, carrying herself with grace, smiling at strangers. The affirmation didn't just attract love, it activated the loving, attractive qualities that had been dormant within her all along. You see, your words are not just sounds floating into the air. They are creative forces. The Bible tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Not metaphorically, literally. Every word you speak is either building your future or dismantling it. Think about your own speech patterns right now. What have you been declaring over your life? I never have enough money? Things never work out for me? I always get sick in winter? These aren't just observations, they're orders you're placing with the universe. And the universe is a perfect order taker. It never argues. It never says, "Are you sure you want that?" It simply delivers exactly what you've consistently claimed. So what if you changed your order? What if you started claiming the opposite? Not because you see it yet, but because you want to see it. This isn't positive thinking, this is creative decree. You are literally speaking your world into existence, one word at a time. And here's what I want you to understand about this process. It doesn't happen all at once. You don't speak one decree and watch your entire world rearrange itself overnight. Sometimes you do, I've seen it happen, but usually it's more subtle, it's gradual. It's like planting seeds in soil you can't see through. You speak your word, you claim your good, and then life begins to shift in ways that seem almost unrelated at first. A phone call comes, an idea drops into your mind at 3 a.m. You meet someone in line at the grocery store who mentions something that leads to something else. These aren't coincidences. These are the invisible gears of the universe turning in response to your declaration. But you have to keep speaking. This is where most people falter. They decree once, maybe twice, and then when nothing dramatic happens immediately, they go right back to their old language. Right back to complaining, doubting, fearing. And the universe, ever faithful, responds to that frequency instead. Your word is your wand, but you have to keep waving it. You have to keep decreeing, keep declaring, keep claiming your good, especially when your circumstances are screaming the opposite at you. Because circumstances are always the last to change. First comes the word, then comes the shift in consciousness, then comes the rearrangement of invisible forces. And finally, at the very end of the process, comes the physical manifestation. Most people judge the power of their word by looking at their circumstances, and that's precisely backwards. Your circumstances are showing you what you were speaking last week, last month, last year. What you're speaking today is creating what you'll see tomorrow. So if you've been declaring abundance for 3 days and you're still broke, that doesn't mean it's not working. It means you're in the gap between decree and manifestation. And what you do in that gap determines everything. Do you hold steady? Do you keep claiming your good? Or do you look at your bank account and say, "See, I knew this wouldn't work," thereby canceling your own order with the universe? The universe doesn't hear your words, dear one. It feels your conviction. It responds to your sustained frequency. And this is where most people lose the game, not in the asking, but in the wavering that comes after. I once knew a woman who declared she was ready for her perfect home. She could see it clearly. She spoke the word with such power that everyone around her believed it too. The very next week, she saw a house that matched her vision exactly. But when she learned the price, something inside her collapsed. She said to me, "Florence, I was foolish to think I could afford such a place." Within days, the house was sold to someone else. Not because it wasn't meant for her, but because she withdrew her claim. She looked at her present circumstances and allowed them to cancel her future good. Your present circumstances are yesterday's thoughts made visible. They are not prophecy. They are not your ceiling. They are simply the lag time between your old consciousness and your new declaration. But if you keep judging your new word by your old conditions, you will remain locked in an endless loop of almost, but not quite. This is the spiritual law. You cannot enter a new consciousness while clutching the evidence of the old one. You cannot be transformed while insisting on proof from your current reality. The proof comes after the shift, not before. Faith is the willingness to stand in the invisible, while the visible rearranges itself to match. And here is what you must understand about this rearrangement. It rarely happens the way you think it will. You ask for money, and instead you receive an idea. You ask for a relationship, and instead you're led to heal an old wound. The universe is wiser than your strategies. It knows the shortest path to your demonstrated supply, even when that path looks nothing like what you expected. So when you speak your word, release the how. Your job is not to figure out the mechanism. Your job is to hold the vision and follow the intuitive leads that come. When you feel moved to call someone, call them. When you feel moved to take a different route home, take it. When a thought drops into your consciousness that feels light and right, act on it. These are not coincidences. They are the universe's coordination of circumstances on your behalf. The greatest tragedy I witness is not that people fail to ask, but that they ask and then immediately contradict their own request with fear-based thinking. They say, "I desire financial abundance," and in the next breath worry about bills. They declare, "I am open to love," while simultaneously rehearsing past betrayals. This is like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. The universe responds to your dominant vibration, not your occasional affirmation. If you spend 5 minutes declaring prosperity and 5 hours dwelling on lack, which message do you think is being broadcast more powerfully? I often use the metaphor of the radio. Your consciousness is the dial. Fear, worry, and doubt tune you to one frequency. Faith, gratitude, and expectation tune you to another. The universe is always broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. You simply receive what you're tuned into. This is why I say, guard your thoughts as you would guard your most precious possession, because they are. Your thought patterns create your receiving patterns. Change the first, and you inevitably change the second. Now, let me address something that troubles many people, the question of timing. When will my good arrive? They ask. How long must I wait? Waiting is the wrong word entirely. Waiting implies suspension, passivity, a holding pattern. What you're actually doing is preparation. You're aligning your consciousness with the thing desired. You're becoming the person who naturally receives such blessings. A woman once came to me desperate for marriage. "Why hasn't my husband appeared yet?" she demanded. I asked her to describe her days. She was bitter, critical, closed off. She spoke constantly of how men had disappointed her. I said gently, "You're not ready to receive him yet. You're broadcasting the frequency of resentment, not receptivity." She was offended at first, but something in her recognized the truth. She began to work on her own consciousness, releasing old grudges, opening her heart, becoming the woman who could appreciate and attract a loving partner. Within 6 months, she met her match. The delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The universe is always working times for times you, never against you. Every delay carries within it a divine purpose. When you understand this, you stop resisting. You stop the frantic energy that says, "Why isn't it here yet? What's wrong with me?" That resistance only pushes your good further away. I want you to see delays not as denials, but as divine timing orchestrating circumstances beyond your comprehension. Sometimes you're not ready. Sometimes the gift isn't ready. Sometimes other pieces must fall into place first. The universe is setting up a perfect convergence, and your job is to remain faithful, to hold steady in your knowing. Think of it like this. You order a custom-made garment from the finest tailor. It's being crafted specifically for you, measured precisely to your dimensions. Would you storm into the shop every day demanding, "Where is it? Why isn't it ready?" No. You trust the process. You know the artisan is working with care and skill. Your demonstration is being tailored to fit your life perfectly. Trust the master tailor. When you complain about the delay, you're essentially saying, "God, you don't know what you're doing. My timing is better than yours." Can you see the absurdity in that? The same infinite intelligence that orchestrates the planets, that turns acorns into oak trees, that keeps your heart beating without your conscious effort, that intelligence knows exactly when to deliver your good. I've seen this principle at work in financial demonstrations, too. A man was expecting a large sum of money, and when it didn't arrive as quickly as he hoped, he fell into doubt and anxiety. He stopped affirming. He started complaining. And you know what happened? The money came, but it came with complications, delays, and difficulties because he had muddied the waters with his fearful thoughts. Another person, faced with a similar situation, held steady. She said, "I don't know how or when, but I know my good is coming. I trust divine timing." She remained peaceful, kept her faith active, continued her affirmations. When her money arrived, it came with ease, often from unexpected sources, and always at the exact moment it was needed. Her unwavering faith created a clear channel. This is the secret so many miss. Faith isn't just believing when things look good. True faith holds steady when every circumstance screams the opposite. It's maintaining your inner conviction when the bank account shows zero, when the job hasn't appeared, when the healing seems delayed. You must become unmovable in your knowing, not stubborn in your worry, but anchored in your certainty that God's good is already established. This is what separates those who demonstrate the law from those who merely talk about it. I worked with a woman whose business was failing. Every indicator pointed to closure. Her mind presented 1,000 logical reasons to quit, to declare defeat, to accept loss as inevitable. But she had learned the truth. She said to me, "Florence, I refuse to accept this appearance. My business is God's business, and God's business cannot fail." She didn't ignore the challenges. She took practical action where needed, but her mental attitude remained unshakable. She blessed her business, blessed her clients, blessed even her empty cash register. She affirmed, "Infinite supply flows through this business now. The right clients appear at the right time." Within weeks, everything shifted. New clients appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Old debts were suddenly paid. Opportunities opened that she couldn't have orchestrated through human effort alone. Her faith had created a magnet for her good. This is what I mean by perfect faith. It doesn't waver with appearances. It holds to the invisible reality until it becomes visible. It knows that what God has prepared cannot be blocked by any outer condition. Your demonstration matches your realization. When you truly know, not hope, not wish, but know that your good is already yours in the invisible, it must appear in the visible. This is law. This is absolute. This is how the universe operates. So I say to you now, whatever you're desiring, whatever you're claiming, develop this quality of perfect faith. Let nothing move you from your inner knowing. And here's something I've observed. The people who demonstrate the most remarkable manifestations are not the ones who obsess, who check constantly, who dig up their seeds every morning to see if they've sprouted. No, they're the ones who plant with certainty and then go about their lives with joy and expectation. Think of a woman who plants a garden. She doesn't stand over the soil, wringing her hands, doubting whether the seeds will grow. She waters, she tends, and then she waits with pleasant anticipation. She knows the law of growth is working beneath the surface, even when she sees nothing. She might even prepare her vases for the flowers before they've bloomed, because she knows they're coming. This is the consciousness you must cultivate. Do what's before you to do, prepare for your good, and maintain your inner knowing regardless of outer circumstances. I knew someone who was working toward a significant career change. Every door seemed closed, interviews led nowhere, opportunities dissolved at the last moment. But this person maintained perfect faith. She continued to prepare, to study, to act as though the position was already hers. She even rearranged her schedule, turned down other offers that didn't align with her vision because she trusted her inner knowing. People thought she was foolish. They said she was being impractical, unrealistic. But within weeks, an opportunity opened that was beyond anything she'd originally imagined. The universe had been arranging circumstances, moving pieces into place, preparing something far better than what she could have forced into being through worry and struggle. You see, when you maintain perfect faith, you allow the universe to work in ways you cannot orchestrate, with your limited human perspective. You stop blocking your good with doubt and fear. You become a clear channel for divine intelligence to operate through. So I ask you to examine your own consciousness right now. Where are you wavering? Where are you looking at appearances and letting them shake your faith? Where are you giving power to conditions instead of to the truth of your being? Because here's what you must understand. The outer world is the world of effects. Your consciousness is the world of cause. When you react to effects, you're working backward. You're trying to change the reflection in the mirror instead of changing what's standing before it. Stand firm in your faith. Let your inner knowing become unshakable. Your word is the law of your life. It's the creative power that shapes every circumstance, every relationship, every opportunity that comes your way. When you speak with conviction, when you declare your good with unwavering faith, you set forces in motion that must bring your desires into form. But here's what most people miss. You cannot speak one thing and believe another. Your word must match your inner conviction. If you affirm prosperity while feeling poor, if you declare health while believing in sickness, you're working against yourself. The universe responds to the dominant vibration, not the words you repeat mechanically. I've watched people affirm abundance for years without results, and when I look deeper, I see they're still making decisions from lack. They're still saying, "I can't afford it." They're still complaining about bills. They're still focused on what's missing rather than what's coming. Your word isn't just what you say in your morning affirmations, it's the running commentary in your mind all day long. This is why I always say, watch your words as you would watch a garden. Pull out the weeds the moment they appear. When a negative thought comes, don't let it take root. Replace it immediately with its opposite. When you catch yourself saying, "I'll never have enough," stop mid-sentence and declare instead, "My supply is endless and immediate." Some will say this sounds like denial, like you're pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. But there's a vast difference between denial and recognition of spiritual truth. Denial says, "There is no problem." Spiritual recognition says, "The problem has no power because I am aligned with infinite solutions." You're not denying the appearance. You're denying its permanence. You're denying its authority over your life. You're reminding yourself and the universe that what you see is temporary, but what you know in spirit is eternal. And here's what begins to happen when you truly live this way. Synchronicities multiply. The right people appear at the right time. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Money comes from unexpected sources. Healing happens without explanation. Relationships transform overnight. This isn't magic, it's law. It's the natural result of aligning your consciousness with divine abundance. But you must remain vigilant. The old patterns will try to reassert themselves. Doubt will whisper in quiet moments. Fear will present compelling evidence. This is when your faith must become fierce. This is when you stand like a warrior in the invisible and refuse to budge from your knowing. I've heard people say, "But Florence, what if I'm fooling myself? What if this is just wishful thinking?" And I say to them, wishful thinking carries doubt in its vibration. Wishful thinking says, "I hope, maybe, perhaps." But speaking the word with authority says, "It is done. It is finished." Can you feel the difference? One wavers. The other stands firm as granite. When you speak your word, you're not begging the universe. You're not negotiating with God. You're declaring what already exists in the spiritual realm and commanding it to take form in the physical. You are the portal through which heaven touches earth. Never forget the magnitude of your role in creation. I want to share something with you that transformed my entire understanding. Every great spiritual teacher has said the same thing in different words. The kingdom of heaven is within you, not somewhere distant. Not after you die, not when you're good enough. Within you, right now, this very moment. And if the kingdom is within you, then all the treasures of that kingdom are accessible to you now. This means healing is within you now. Prosperity is within you now. Love is within you now. Perfect right action is within you now. These aren't things you must earn or attract from outside yourself. They're realities you must recognize and claim. So when you speak your word, you're not calling something from far away. You're calling forth what's already present in seed form, giving it permission to blossom into your experience. The ancient teachers knew this. They spoke of treasure buried in fields, of seeds that contain entire forests, of kingdoms hidden in plain sight. They were trying to tell us, stop seeking outside yourself. Turn within. Recognize the infinite that dwells in you. Your word activates this inner treasure. Your word is the key that unlocks the storehouse. This is why half-hearted affirmations don't work. You can't whisper at a locked door and expect it to open. You must speak with the authority of one who knows they have the key, who knows the treasure is waiting, who knows it belongs to them by divine right. And here's what makes this so powerful. When you speak from this place of inner knowing, from this recognition of the kingdom within, your entire energy shifts. You stop chasing. You stop pleading. You start claiming. You start commanding. You become magnetic rather than desperate.